Hello students, and welcome to this presentation on digestion, how food becomes you. Now this PowerPoint video lesson is meant to help you understand the journey of food and how it is absorbed for growth and development. So what is digestion? Digestion is the process by which our body breaks down food and the nutrients within the food into smaller substances that can be used by our body. So there are two processes that digestion uses: mechanical and chemical digestion, to break down the food into these usable nutrients. Mechanical digestion, it uses mastication or chewing, squeezing muscular movements to break down food physically. Chemical digestion uses enzymes and stomach acid to break down foods at the chemical level so that it can be absorbed by the human body. So everything happens in the gastrointestinal tract, or GI tract for short. All the processes occurs here. It's a muscular tube that runs from the mouth all the way to the end of a person's anus. Now the length of the GI tract can range from 25 to 30 feet, 7.5 to 9 meters, or if you're a sports fan like me, in football it's like about the length of trying to get a first down. So why is food important? Well, food has nutrients that provide us energy and the materials to help build, body tissues and keep us moving and alive. Now, there are 6 nutrient groups needed by the human body: carbohydrates, fats, protein, vitamins, minerals, and water. Now, all nutrients are needed on some level to maintain quality physical health. Nutrients from food are used to either build and repair body tissues, regulate body processes, or just flat out provide energy. Now, energy is from food is measured in kilocalories. They're often referred to as calories, but they're 1,000 times the value that the scientific word calorie is used in most classes. So nutrition is very similar to organic chemistry, but it's done so in a way just for the human body. Now, there are 25 chemical elements involved in nutritional science. All nutrients in the food it comes from are made up of atoms, molecules, or compounds. So think of food as essentially a chemical, and the breakdown of food into becoming you is like a large chemical reaction. So let's look down at all of the nutrients that are needed by the human body and how they're broken down chemically. So water, made up of hydrogen and oxygen, good old H2O. Carbohydrates, CHO, or carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The proportion is always 1 to 2 to 1. Fats, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, but this time the hydrogen-oxygen ratio is higher than 2 to 1, different from carbs. So it's got more hydrogens in it. Minerals, these are the elements alone, all right? Zinc, iron, magnesium, calcium, with the exception of sodium, which is, or salt, which is sodium chloride. Vitamins, now these are varying amounts of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, all right? And then you can add phosphorus and nitrogen in there as well. So let's take a look at what these look like chemically, so you can now look at nutrition as a science, right? And how it's related to chemistry, organic chemistry, and biology. Well, here's some carbohydrate isomers, or what you call carbohydrate molecules. The basics are glucose, galactose, and fructose, which will later be taught in a lesson of macronutrients. But as you can see, it's made up of CHO, and the ratio is 1 to 2 to 1. Here are fatty acids, or fats. So here's an example of a saturated and unsaturated fat. Now these are a little different from phospholipids, which are also fats, but your typical fatty acids and your triglycerides will look like this. And it ranges, and it still has carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, but the ratio of hydrogen and oxygen is much higher. Continuing on, with the structures of each of the nutrients, you can see here's the amino acid structure. This is the basics of all proteins. It still has C, H, and O in there, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. But what makes it a little different, it does have an R, a side chain, and then an amino acid group that has nitrogen. So it adds a little nitrogen into its structure. Now, vitamins are very complex structures, mostly made up of hydrogen and oxygen, but you can add in other elements such as nitrogen and phosphorus, as well as carbon. But these chains are a lot more complex. But it's a great visual to see what they look like, as opposed to just seeing them for the name that is always on a food label. And then the elements, minerals, you'll have different types. You'll have either macro minerals or micro or trace elements, and calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium. These would all be found on a periodic table, and you need these in small amounts for body processes. So the journey. Let's talk about the journey. Okay. The process of breaking down food into usable nutrients to enhance the body can take anywhere from 24 to 72 hours, or 1 to 3 days. Okay. Factors include physical activity, types of food that you consume, and personal digestive issues that may be present. Where it all begins, the mouth. Digestion begins in the mouth. Okay. Your teeth, your buckers, they tear, they grind, they crush food into smaller pieces. That process is called mastication. While that's happening, your salivary glands let loose saliva into your system, your spit, and it will coat and soften food. Okay? It lubricates it so that it can move down your throat. But it also releases enzymes that start the chemical digestive process, breaking them into smaller, more molecular pieces. And then your tongue will start pushing down food down the throat into your esophagus. And then there's a lovely little flap of skin called the epiglottis right here. It prevents food from entering the trachea or the windpipe, so you don't choke. So if you eat food too fast and you're swallowing, okay, and your epiglottis doesn't move quick enough to block your trachea, you can choke. Moving down the tubes. Well, all food will move down the esophagus through a process called peristalsis. This is a squeezing action of the esophageal muscles. Okay, the cardiac valve, which is the barrier between the esophagus and the stomach, and it's called that because it's the valve closest to the heart. Okay, it's there to allow food in, but it's also there to prevent acid burning into your esophagus, because stomach acid is so powerful. Okay. Now, as you can see in the picture to your right, esophageal muscles are directed downward to keep foods from regurgitating. All right, it helps, especially with gravity. Now, once you get into the stomach, well, food, once it enters the stomach, will mix with gastric juices. This is a combination of hydrochloric acid, digestive enzymes, and mucus. Now, once the food particles mix with it, it becomes a whole other substance together, a whole other mixture, and it's called chyme. Okay, and then chyme will continue to move through the body. Now, stomach acid is very strong and destructive. And to protect this sensitive body tissues, the stomach is lined with something called mucosa or mucus. Now, at the bottom of your stomach is the pyloric valve. The pyloric valve is the gateway from the stomach to the small intestines, or the beginning part called the duodenum, and it will open and allow chyme into the small intestines for future absorption. Now, the small intestines is the next part. This is where most of digestion takes place. About 95% of it occurs in the small intestines. Now, there are 3 sections of small intestines: the duodenum, the shortest, the jejunum, and then the ileum. Okay, and each part has a different role in absorption and what nutrient that it focuses on. Now, the intestines are coiled up, but when stretched out, they can be 20 feet. The small name comes from, just the 1-inch diameter rings that the small intestines are. So they're actually really not all that small. They're just smaller than the large intestines. As confusing as that may sound. Now, the travel time from the mouth to the end of the small intestines, it's about 5 to 14 hours. It can be very quick or it can be slow. Again, it all depends on some of the previous factors that I discussed, type of food you eat, any digestive issues, physical activity. And then the pancreas and liver, although not directly a part of the journey, are digestive organs, and they will secrete chemicals and hormones to help break down carbohydrates and fats once food enters the small intestines. Now, any remaining nutrients such as vitamins and minerals, they will be absorbed into the body through villi or lacteals that are in the intestinal walls. Now, where do all the nutrients break down? They all actually break down in different spots. Protein is broken down in the stomach. The dominant enzyme in this is pepsin, and then proteases are the combo of enzymes that help break down proteins. Okay, carbohydrates, starch and sugars, they're broken down by something called saccharidases, or enzymes that break down starches and sugars. The enzymes for that are received from the pancreas. Fats use lipases to break down fats into 3 basic components. They get broken down into fatty acids, glycerols, and monoglycerides. Bile, which helps in fat breakdown, is released by the gallbladder into the duodenum. Now, but before use, before it gets put into the duodenum, bile is actually made in the liver. And then vitamins and minerals, these are absorbed by villi. The water-soluble vitamins, anyway, are in the villi, and then the lacteals absorb the fat-soluble in the intestinal walls. And then all nutrients, the passing through to the circulatory and lymphatic systems for use of all cells. All right, this is just called absorption. The large intestines, otherwise known as the colon, right? They're about 3.5 feet coiled up, but it can be upwards to 5 and 6 feet long. Now, the purpose of the large intestines is to absorb any remaining water from the chyme, the food, the combination of juices and food, that is traveling through the GI tract. Now, chyme stays in the bowels for anywhere from 1 to 3 days, so if you're feeling a little backed up, that's why. The whole process can take a little while. Now, remaining solid wastes, or feces, poop, are excreted through the anus by way of the rectum. Okay? And fiber actually can help this. It will help bulk up the feces in the chyme so that when the water is absorbed, it will leave a solid structure that the intestinal muscles can grab onto and push through your system. Now, metabolism, we hear so much about this. What is it? Well, it refers to the combination of chemical changes that occur as cells produce energy and use materials to sustain life. It is commonly used to refer to how fast food breaks down and is used by the body. Some people say they have a fast metabolism. Others are like, I have a slow metabolism. And they often ask about, when it will speed up and slow down. So your metabolism actually converts nutrients into ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, which is an energy source for your muscle tissues. Now, any excess nutrients unused by the body will get converted into something called glycogen, all right? And that is stored in the liver. Now, there's only so much that can be stored in the liver, so the remaining excess nutrients beyond that will be converted to fat, a very concentrated energy source, and that's stored throughout the body. Now, depending on if you're male or female, where that excess fat is stored could be different. So how do eating habits and digestion, how are they affected? Well, all of your eating habits, your emotions, any food allergies you have, any food intolerances, physical activity, digestive disorders, and just the types of food that we eat can impact your ability for quality digestion. So it's always good to have some caution and understand your habits. Well, how can we help? Well, eat a balance of fresh and natural foods, base meats and vegetables. These are what our ancestors ate, all right? The meat and vegetable diet. What was always natural in the world. Our bodies are meant to take down what was natural, not unnatural. Fresh fruits and vegetables will aid in digestion with added fiber. Be careful because there is still added sugar in fresh fruit, so you want to watch out for that. Eating too much can actually cause stress for the digestive system because now it's got too much to break down all at once. All right, and now it's going to be working a little bit harder. Fatty foods take longer to digest than proteins and carbs, so it's always good to understand why. Fat floats in your stomach and it stays up top, all right? And because of that, it takes longer. It won't get to it as quickly. Therefore, it will be sustained. So you'll feel fuller longer, and that's where a lot of people get their belly aches after having a fatty or high sugar meal. Ultra-processed foods contain additives that can impact your digestive tract functioning. It all depends on your intolerances and your allergies. Physical activity will increase metabolic rates because the more you move, the quicker you have to pump through nutrients to keep your body healthy and moving and strong. And then unsafe foods just can cause foodborne illness. And if anybody's ever had foodborne illness or food sickness, I feel bad for you because it's not a pleasurable experience. I know from experience. Emotional eating. This happens all the time. Stress eating. Stress resulting from emotions such as fear, anger, tension, they can cause digestive issues. Increased stress on the body actually decreases the functioning of other body systems. So if you're in constant stress, your digestive system may not work properly because your body is working on your fight or flight system to handle that stress. So your energy helping your digestive system has been removed. So overeating can result from happiness or from social situations. So be aware of what you're around and how much you eat and really keep a minimum to it. So to overcome emotions, practice eating slower, chew thoroughly, and this makes pieces smaller and can actually decrease the amount of space taken up in the digestive tract and actually increase surface area to speed up a chemical reaction. Now, allergies versus intolerances. A lot of people confuse the two. Well, a food allergy is a reaction of your body's immune system to a certain protein that's found in the food. Now, this will trigger and cause antibodies to be released that then cause further body reactions. Okay, so food allergy example would be like certain nuts, peanut butter, shellfish such as crab or lobsters, or even gluten that's found in bread products. Now, food intolerance, on the other hand, is a bodily response to an unpleasant or undesired food as a result of chemical deficiencies within the digestive system. So what does that mean? So for example, food intolerance example, like milk or dairy products, okay? Lactose intolerance means you don't have enough chemicals in your body or enzymes to break down that milk. So your body will flush it through as a foreign object, therefore either causing you to vomit or diarrhea to get it out of your system because you can't break it down. Now, there are a variety of digestive disorders that can occur in the human body, and it's important because every person is probably going to experience these at some point in their life, and you need to know what the signs and symptoms are so you're not experiencing anything and surprised by any of it. First is diarrhea. This is a frequent expulsion of watery feces. A lot of times this happens when a foreign body is recognized and your body uses the excess water in the system to flush it out. Constipation is the backup in the large intestines where chyme moves very slowly. Oftentimes, there's excess fiber, excess bulk, and not enough water in the chyme to loosen the stool, and therefore it gets stuck in the large intestine on its way out. Indigestion. This is just the ability, the difficulty breaking down food in the GI tract. So it's just an overall word that encompasses a very large part. Just means you have a difficult time breaking food down. Heartburn. Now, this is the burning pain in the middle of the chest resulting from stomach acid that has flowed upward through the cardiac valve. Okay, so the stomach acid burns at the tissues not protected by the mucosa. And the reason they call it heartburn is because it goes through the cardiac valve near the heart. Burning sensation near the heart, heartburn. Ulcers. These are open sores in the lining of the stomach or the intestines. These are caused by bacteria, and the openings can become inflamed and then give a burning sensation. Also, which makes ulcers even more dangerous and painful, is the fact that the open sores can cause openings in your mucus. Therefore, the acids in your stomach or in the intestines can therefore exit past the mucus and hit your unprotected tissues, organ tissues, and cause excess burning sensations. Gallstones, these are just small crystals that are formed from bile in the gallbladder. They just harden up. Pain will result when these gallstones start blocking the ducts in the gallbladder and where fluids flow back and forth. And then that buildup will cause pressure and pain. Diverticulosis, this is a formation of abnormal pouches inside the intestinal walls. Some closing thoughts. So we need to understand that nutrition is a science, and digestion explains the chemical reactions that occur in the human body. Okay? Every person has a different chemical makeup and interacts with food in their own way. And it's very important for each person to understand how they interact with food. Now, it takes a lifetime to truly understand your body. All right? A lot of people want to know now, but it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort. But I promise you, it's worth it, especially for your health. Understanding your own body is critical in making food choices over a lifetime. By knowing how your body reacts to different foods, you can now make good food choices, what to eat and, more importantly, what not to eat. And then always be a learner in the field of nutrition. There's something new you can learn every single day. All right? Learn, understand the science, understand food. It's important for your health. You'll feel better. Your mind will feel better. The mind-body connection is real. Nutrition is a science. Understand the science of you. All right. I'd like to thank you for watching this video lesson. All right. If you have any questions, just drop me a line. Thank you. Have a great day.